possibly have at a conference or on stage. My name is Jenny. I talk really fast. I'm really sorry, but we only have probably less than 30 minutes now, so my slides are usually self-explanatory anyway, but if you do need me to repeat something, just put your hand up and tell me to slow down and repeat it. I will not take offense to it because I'm very used to it. And plus, I know I'm in Europe, so sometimes people don't understand my accent, so that's absolutely okay. Put your hand up and I will try and slow down. Okay, so I'm Jenny. I am a community addict, self-confessing community addict. I have been going to conferences since I was a student, and basically, like, the open source community helped me pass my dissertation, pass my degree, I got a job, so I owe a lot to the open source community, and therefore I feel like, you know, when there's a great support network, you kind of come back for more support, so this is why I'm a community addict. And we, in the community, especially the open source community, we have offline and online communities, and they're sometimes different, but also they're sometimes exactly the same, because, you know, the same type of people are in both those places. Today, I'm going to be talking to you all about building an offline community in particular, because that's my specialty. But many of the things I'm going to talk about also applies to online communities as well. You just need to think about how would this translate to an online community. And most of the time, you're going to be able to figure it out. If you're not sure, I will be around the rest of the day. So this story is about an event that I had the honor of being the lead organizer for last year, WordCamp London 2016. It's a WordPress event, happens in London, and now it's no secret that in tech communities especially, we talk a lot about diversity, and there's been a lot of movement in the events, in the open source community especially, to encourage diversity in our events. And as an organizer of events, and an attendee and a speaker who goes to a lot of events, I've seen many different ways of tackling diversity in particular. So, as the organizer of WordCamp London last year, we tackled it a little differently. We didn't look at diversity. In fact, I didn't even want the word diversity to be anywhere in the way we thought. Instead, I wanted to focus on inclusivity. My idea was, if we make the most inclusive event possible, then diversity should kind of fix itself. And you know, as lead organizer, you're just like, well, I guess it's my time to test this theory. So, I'm going to share with you today what we did and how it went as well. But first things first, if you're going to do anything in a group, generally it's a good idea to have organizer buy-in. So as a WordCamps are organized by a team of volunteers. I was not the only person on that team, thankfully, because it's far too much work. There was another 7 people that I had to get buy-in from. And so I actually asked all my core organizers to have buy-in with this mentality, with this vision of creating an inclusive event. And so, after I got buy-in, the question is, how do you make a community inclusive? And the answer to that was, accessibility. God bless America. I'm on 5 seconds. One bucket here. Third one, Mars. One thing. Oh no.
Good slides.
No, going back to the beginning. So, how do you make a community inclusive? And the answer to that is putting accessibility at the core. So when you put accessibility at the core, it's really the answer to everything. You ask yourself, will this make the event more accessible to people? And what I learned was that the budget that you have as a conference organizer or the size of the event doesn't matter. There's lots of different ways to make a community accessible to more people. So I'm going to go through, I think it's 11 different pointers today. And I'm going to start off with content. It's the first thing as an attendee that you see about an event. it's the content, it's the wording. So at WordCamp London in 2016, we did a big push to have gender-neutral pronouns everywhere. Regardless of what people submitted, we went and changed everything. Because ultimately, we didn't care about the sex of the person. We didn't care about the gender of the person. We also changed the tone of voice. If we want nice people, be a nice person online, and hopefully they'll turn up. Because like attracts like, apparently. So we were really careful about the way we described things and made sure that what we said really meant what we wanted. We also had to realize quickly that different accessibility terms mean different things. So hard of hearing is different to deaf. For someone who isn't hard of hearing, I didn't know the difference. And so I was using things interchangeably, and it took someone else to point this out, say, no, you're using the wording wrong. And so it's you need to do your homework in terms of the actual words you're choosing to use. Depending on the language that you're from, these rules might be a little different. With imagery, they say that one image is 1,000 words. So when we picked imagery for our event, we were carefully selecting what kind of event we wanted to show to try and entice the same event to become a real thing. And it's kind of a thing that's quite hard to do at the beginning because you have to be proactively finding imagery from your old events to then be the images that you want for the next year. So it was actually hard for the first year. But, we do have some photographers who go around the event and take photos, so we asked them if there could be an X particular type of photos for the next year as well. We also made sure we proofread everything. I'll be honest, in 2017, our edition this year, we've not been as good as last year, but I'm hoping to rectify that as soon as FOSDEM is over. But we proofread everything, so we made sure that every organizer was reading the same content to make sure that things weren't misrepresented on paper, or on screen rather. And that was really good because our team was diverse, so different people had different language skills in different languages. So I didn't know, for example, the word coolies is derogatory in America and in the UK, which is slang. So not things like that catch you out if you're trying to encourage more people. The other thing is childcare. So the cost for childcare last year was £2,344, which is a lot of money. It started off with this particular tweet asking us if we had any plans for childcare. And my response to Joe was basically, if you join the organising team, there will be, I'll give you the money for it. So she did. It's a nice way to get organisers if you want to know. Basically, if they want something, they can sort it out themselves. But there's a lot of things about childcare, especially in the UK. There's a lot of legal issues that come with looking after children that are not your own in particular, so you have to be really careful. So my tips to you include don't do it yourself. Do not be responsible for other people's children, because parents are the most protective people I've ever met, including my own. Find professionals, and more importantly, vet the professionals. Just because they say they're professionals doesn't mean that they are. So if your country has different types of documentation and different reports and stuff that they're meant to have and different certificates, make sure you see them and vet them. Even better, have a parent talk to them. We actually did a face-to-face meeting with the crash at the university where we're holding the venue with some parents that were on our organising team to ensure that parents' instincts are being met. Because parents know best. They have children. You have these instincts, so use them. Make sure you meet them in person. And also get testimonials and follow through with it. It's one thing to say, yeah, they're great. It's another thing to phone up the testimonial and go, did you really mean this? So go that extra mile, because having people's lives in your hands is one of the scariest things you'll do as an organizer. So it's the one thing that you want to make sure that you're looking after. And one thing we did at the event was to encourage attendees to check it out. I always knew that I wanted to make a crash a standard at WordCamp London because of the size of the event. But to encourage more people to use it, they need to know what they're buying into. So I encourage parents to go and see the crash. Last year we only had one child in the crash. For 2,300 quid, there was one kid. It's probably the most expensive childcare they'll ever get in their life, but they had a great time. So it was totally worth it. We also had parents coming in and checking the place out and saying, now that I know who is dealing with the crash and they look legit, I'm going to use them. And it's a good thing to say, like at the end of the event, I actually announced, because I was so impressed with the team, we were definitely going to bring the same team back as long as all the vetting checks were fine for this year as well. Luckily, they are. So they are coming back to our event this year. And we've already had 2 kids sign up, which is better than the 1 kid, so I feel like we're on the roll. At least the cost is split in half now, although they are siblings. But it's super cool because it is our father and it does mean that the father and the mother can go to the event. And this is important when we're trying to be accessible and be more diverse, right? Half the people that we know probably look after someone, either a child, an elderly, or someone that's of their same age. There's so many different reasons that people are looking after other people. So try and be considerate of that as much as you can. Next, space planning. The cost of space planning is free because obviously if you're going to rent an event, then you've got the space. And if you're on the internet, you create the space. So really the cost of space planning is free. Some of the most obvious things when you're doing events is to think about wheelchair access and how easy it is for a wheelchair to get around. This room is not exactly great, but we'll just slide over that. Also think about in the UK, hearing loops. In most locations in the UK, it is no UK centric, unfortunately, that hearing loops are usually in particular locations, especially event locations, and especially if you go to a university, they're usually all hooked up because it's just a legal requirement, so that usually ticks yourself off. But if you don't have one, then, check. And if the location that you've picked for your event doesn't have a hearing loop, just be upfront about it. People like to know because they can be prepared on what you don't have as much as what you do have. We also had a multi-faith room, which was great, and we actually listed the different types of rooms that were there. We also had a lactation room for people who were expressing milk. We also had a quiet room, which is one of my most favourite rooms of the whole entire event, because as an organiser, when you don't want to talk to anyone, this is your favourite room. I went to PyCon UK and Django UK the last 2 years, and they had a quiet room in Cardiff, and it was the best thing ever. You go in and no one talks. It's amazing. And you just go there and you take 5 minutes each time to just, and then you go back out and deal with everyone else. It's the best thing ever. So props to the Python community. There is more on Python London here. But yes, green rooms. As a speaker, some of you saw me outside, pacing quite rigorously because my adrenaline was going. It still is going. But the green room is a great place as a speaker to go and freak out in private, so that not everyone else sees it and laughs at you. So if you have the space to have a green room, it's always great for speakers just to go, check the slides, make sure you have an adapter, freak out in private. So we had a green room as well. We also had a sprint room, which was, there's so many times you go to a conference and then some client calls, or there's some work emergency, and you just need a quiet space where you can have a phone call and deal with a work issue, or maybe a team of you to deal with something together. We had a room specifically for that, so when people had a freak out call, they had a space that they could go and do things and get it done as quickly as possible without interfering with other people, or other people saying, hey, what are you doing? And getting really interested in the fact that you're trying to fix a hacked website. Yeah. We also had a media room, which only 2 people use, so it's not really great for the size of events, but it was cool. If people wanted to do podcasts, there was a space for them, and it's all about creating spaces for the people that you're expecting. We also had lots of breakout spaces. We had large hallway tracks, which we designed with chairs and TVs to break out the spaces and change the way people felt. So even though it was a 600-person event, you would mostly feel like a 200 event because everything was so spread out and scattered. That way, you go to a big event but have a small local feel as well, and that's important. Creating that feel is really important. There's also overflow areas because sometimes sometimes you just can't predict what people are going to do. For example, this track has been crazy busy all day. There's been people outside, and at Wake Up London, what we do is we actually feed out the TVs outside the room with the video camera, so outside they actually can see what's going on inside, and they have speakers so they can hear, which is kind of handy. Yes. Signage. I didn't realise printing was really expensive, but this is what happens when you print everything 48 hours before your event. Go do it. And then the printers decided to send me 2 of everything because they thought it was helpful. It was not. Signage is really, really important. And maybe not for the reasons that you realise when you get signage, you can get from A to B. But also, it creates an atmosphere. So for example, in this room here, the ceilings are actually super tall. But what we did was we put bunting at the top to make a more relaxed and calmer atmosphere by lowering the ceiling. Otherwise, it just felt like an empty, great big hall. That was the lunch hall. Signage is also really important because it allows self-support for people with neurodiversity. Something I learned in one of my many travels was that people with neurodiversity don't like asking questions and talking to other people, but they do want to be self-sufficient. So signage allows those people to be self-sufficient. Now, you will always need more signage than you think. Basically, you can't see a signage to get somewhere, and imagine you have 2-second memory loss. Basically, your signage should be able to deal with that. Make sure you brand them, especially when you're in a co-sharing location like a university. Make them bright and eye-catching, so it's very quick for your eye to just quickly look and know where to go, like the exit sign over there. Pro tip, something we didn't do last year, but we're hoping to do this year, is use a reading-friendly font. And this helps for people with dyslexia and other type of learning disabilities. It just makes it easier. So something like all capitals is like, some people hate, some people love. And always make them bigger than you realise, because there's a lot of us, and there's one piece of signage. And most importantly, because I'm 5'2", have them above head height. Because especially if you're in, I don't know, let's say the Netherlands, where everyone's 6 foot by standard, and I'm 5'2", I can't see anything at the 6 foot level because everyone else is in the way. So you've got to put them like high up, as high as you can. So when you're far away, you still see that signage. Signage always takes more time to put up than you realise. And also, be careful with your venue, because some sticky things they don't like, and then you end up getting paid, like invoice for like paintwork. That's not cool. But one pro tip that I have been doing for the last year is pre-organise your signage the day before, so that you're ready to sign up straight away, and they're all in the correct order and they're all in the correct locations. So even if you just put the sticky pads on the back of it, it just makes it that much faster on the day. Bring some blank branded signage, because you always find somewhere which could do an extra sign, so you can just quickly write one up. But if you're going to write something up and you need it to be big and bold, use a chisel tip marker pen, otherwise you'll be stuck there for hours. And also, volunteer t-shirt is signage. I feel like even if we get rid of all the attendees t-shirts, volunteer t-shirts are a must, because you know who to talk to and who to ask. Scheduling. How much time do I have? Okay, because I realise this clock thing is completely wrong. It's saying 29 hours, so never mind. Okay, so scheduling. I really like it when they give you the turnover time in a schedule. Scheduling is really important. Adds turnover time so people know how long they've got to get from A to B. Wheelchair users, and like me, basically I'm creating an event for myself. I have a wheelchair ankle injury after being drunk in Singapore for a conference, so I can't really walk fully on my left leg. And when it's flared up, my ankle injury means that something that should take me 5 minutes takes me 30 minutes. So injuries actually are not always obvious, so please think about that when you're looking at your turnover time. Also, if you have an event where people are bringing their children, it takes time to get children from A to B, so it helps them as well. Plus, it's nice to have a breather and air the room, as we all are feeling right now. The other thing is having a back-of-house lunch for all your sponsors and all your volunteers before the manic all the attendees turn up at lunchtime. Have a time that's actually allocated for them, so they can, if they're free, go and get lunch ahead of the queue, which is nice. And have it before and after the main lunch. Something I also learned, and we're doing this year from the Python community, is shift lunching. So what they did was on every attendee's badge have A and B on it. And so A went 45 minutes at the beginning, and then B went at 45 minutes after. And it was amazing. So we're stealing that this year. We also do live captions, which I also learned from the Finder community. Honestly, they've got so many cool things. Live captioning is actually one of the most expensive accessibility things we did at £5,218 last year. It's actually more expensive this year. And it's really cool. There are stenographers, STTRs, Elijah and that. And at the beginning, I thought it was really cool because it was useful for hard of hearing people. But then I realized it's also super handy for people with accents, which, let's face it, in Europe is a lot of accents. So, having someone where you can read the subtitles of the accent is super handy. There are some extra AV considerations because you need to have the actual thing going underneath. But if you talk to your AV team, then you should be able to help you. Something that has been asked and budget pending will do is have what they call a comforter at the beginning of the screen in front of the speaker, so that the speaker, when someone asks a question, they can read the question, which is super handy too. And what I didn't realise is, because I thought they were just always built in, you can rent these things separately from random companies, and they're not too expensive. So it's definitely worth thinking about if you're doing an event. Bathrooms. The cost of that was 50 quid, and I'll explain why in a second. Now, a lot of the times in tech, when we talk about diversity, we talk about degendered toilets. But at WordCamp London, we did not do degendered toilets because you have to be aware of the local laws on public safety and bathrooms and the location and venue. So don't just go and do something. Make sure you're within the legal rights and limits before you go and do something, especially with stores. Now, if a store in the UK has a space above and below the door, forget it. You're not going to get it anywhere past anyone else. But if it's a complete in-case room where it doesn't have any space above and below, then usually you can get away with it. But talk to the venue managers. Okay, so there might not be the only space in the event. Talk to the event managers. Live essential boxes. This is the 50 quid. We had these in every room. There's a lot of women in this room and there are a lot of other people in this room. And I'm pretty sure they probably go to an event where they just were on the wrong schedule and they just don't know what to do. These things are godsend. I'll tell you that now. Having the lid open and putting a personal note because people are more likely to use it. Have different tampons and towel sizes and different sizes. It's super useful. And also remember, which I didn't realise, have extras to refill. It was so much fun sending people out to buy more. This year, we're going to put them in all bathrooms because someone pointed out to me last time I did this talk that it's not just women who need these boxes, and it's totally true. So we're going to put them in all bathrooms this year, which means the cost is from 50 to about 100. But it's totally worth it. Tickets. Now you can do a lot with your tickets. How much time do I have? Okay. Right. Number one, ask for dietary requirements because it just makes it easier for the catering people to actually know who they're catering for. And actually, you can ask as many questions as you want. It's the internet. You can just make as much space as you want. At WordCamp London, we actually put a tick box that makes people aware that swag isn't always guaranteed at our event, which means that when we don't have the budget, we're covered, which is kind of awesome. Ask if anyone needs sign language. Use your ticketing system to find out what kind of attendees you're going to need. Also ask if people require childcare, and put back to the crash, and any other requirements. So I had someone who had a carer. I didn't know this, and she added this into her thing. She had a carer. So she wasn't sure if she needed to buy a carer ticket, and we just gave the carer a free ticket. It's kind of nice, right? Use your opening remarks as a way to deal with the different culture clashes that happen at events. This is one of my favourite pictures, one because it says show someone speaking, and I'm sure we've all been in that room where there's two people at the back having a natter, and it's just really annoying. It's like a bee in your ear. So use your open remarks. Events always bring different cultures together, like FOSDEM. So use your open remarks to set the tone. It also empowers your organisers and volunteers to follow your lead and informs what you expect of people. Also use the turnover at WordCamp London 20 minutes to actually remind people of the kind of politeness that you expect from people. For example, FOSDEM Speakers. Cover topics is super important to me because it means that people can say what they want to hear, and it means that as a speaker submitting, you can pick and create talks that are actually worthy of people interested in. Outreach to other communities in your local area. Have apply to speak sessions with organisers so that people can jump on your hangouts and talk to you directly. We encourage speaker mentors. We have one-on-ones for new speakers and group mentors for people who are already speaking. Because that way, everyone has some kind of fear, we can help them with that. I feel like the more we help people, the more we get new people joining in, and the more diverse our speaker chart looks like. We also encourage people to sign up as mentors, because that way it's less hassle for me to go and find people. And we also have, beforehand, have a virtual green room. I've already mentioned the physical green room. And we have a dedicated speakers organizer, so you don't annoy me, you annoy someone else, which is handy. We also have a speakers information pack because it's really, really handy having one PDF or one email that has all your information of where you need to be, when you need to be there, what kind of VJ, HDMI situation you're going to end up with, what 4:3 ratio. The list is endless. But having it all in one location means when you're like stressed out on the train and you don't know what to do, you just look at this email and go, ta-da! So yeah, that is always, always handy. I prefer in downloadable PDF format. Other people have other opinions, that's absolutely fine. But I do recommend you grab them so people know that they're in the right PDF, because I have been on previous years' PDFs and got it wrong. So please don't do that. Last thing, but not leastly, socials. The cost of our socials is £5,860. We have a non-alcoholic centric event. And what I mean by that is not that we don't have any drinks, but rather we expect you to eat before you drink. And the way we fix that, because there's a big problem in the UK, is we give drink tokens when people go and have their dinner. Our socials include food. Not a buffet, food. Pie, mash, and mushy peas. Which is really what it is. And we give your drink tokens afterwards, because like, okay, you've got a stomach full of food, you can now go drinking if you want. And then we only give out 2 tokens, because if you want to get drunk, it's not an hour cost. We give also attendees something to do. Last year we had retro games, and it was amazing. For like, I think it was like 500 quid. This random guy turned up with all his retro games. It was like Commodore 64s and Sega Mega Drives. He set them all up for the evening, and then he went home, and it was 500 quid. This year we can't get hold of them, so I'm kind of panicking right now with 6 weeks to go. But I'll figure it out. Also, we have drink menu posters, which with your tokens tell the people what they can expect to get at the bar, so the bar queue isn't so long. And we put non-alcoholic drinks first, because it really annoys me that the alcoholic drinks are always first. So I figured, hey, it's my event, I get to do it the way I like. Non-alcoholic drinks first, because that way people are more likely to look at the top of the list and go, yeah, I'll have a Fanta, before they say, yeah, I want a whiskey. Also, at our socials, we have 2 floors, luckily, so we have a floor dedicated to a quieter space, has some chilled out music, tables, really bright lighting, and people talk there, and then all the games and the crazy in the bar are all downstairs. So you get this 2-tiering system for people who just want to have a chat. It's a nice thing. This is how it breaks down. It's £367. Even better. I don't think I'm going to get that this year, but never mind. Yes. There is definitely more to do, but the cost of that is time. In Work Out London, the whole final budget was basically £74,000. Work Out London this year is basically £78,000, because the cost of certain things has gone up, which is kind of annoying. In fact, at this point, with 6 weeks to go, our budget is minus 32%. So the cost of that is basically me not sleeping every night at the moment. So yeah, do not panic, you'll be fine. But a lot of people say to me, maybe you should get rid of some of this accessibility. Maybe we should like cut back on the cost. But the reality of it is, when you truly believe that diversity needs to be improved, then accessibility needs to be a first-class citizen in our events, in all our events, our youth groups and our online events and our offline events. We need to set an expectation of what people have, and then people can work around it. When you tell people what to expect and what people not to expect, people know how to deal with those situations, and they don't have surprises. It's when you have a surprise that people freak out. any improvement is better than no improvement. And I couldn't be prouder of all the people that were working on Workout London last year. This is the team, and they were all absolutely brilliant. Like, they gave so much time to the team project, and it was, I have no words for them. It's coming up in just under 6 weeks. You're more than welcome to come and see how this all actually works. Yeah, very short on time, but I'm around. I'm on Twitter. I'm a prolific tweeter, and you're more likely to get an answer from me from Twitter than you are from my inbox, because I don't like opening it. But do feel free to contact me after this event. I'll be outside after this. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
One remark and a question. That I went to an event in Gothenburg, and they found a nice and cheap way to get sign language interpreters. They contacted the school for sign language.
That's a really good idea.
And they had their first real-world training and had their
Yeah, it's a really good idea. So just for the record, you went to an event in Copenhagen and Gothenburg, sorry, and they used sign language students to do work experience at their local event, which made it cheap. Any other questions?
How many side moves were there at the event?
How many side rooms were at the event?
Oh.
In total, I have no idea. So we're at a university. Yeah, so at Workout London, we pay for the venue, which is £12,000, and then we pay stuff on top. But because it's at university, and because we're over the weekend, I basically walk around the area and like, can I have that room too? And basically don't mention the price. And I get away with it. But then they kind of sussed that out this year, so they want to be a sponsor on the website, they've still not done it. But it's, putting a logo on the website and giving me extra rooms, I'm totally going to take that offer. But also, if you're at a university, you can do like lectures or panels with the students, and they'll give you more stuff for free. So yeah, that's a pro tip for you right there. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you have any ideas for Braille signage or large print signage? Ways to get that done inexpensively?
I would suggest putting it on the tickets and making the tickets say that someone needs Braille, and then you can have those done so that they're ready to go, so you don't make them all like that. Ideally, we'd like all of them to be done, but the cost of that is far too high. So yeah, you can do like one-off runs and not too bad usually. But it's a case-by-case basis, really, like how much money do you have versus what you would do. I would love to have more money and blow the whole thing apart, but there's a realism to it as well, which is why I mentioned the kind of cost that you expect. Alright, unfortunately we're finished, but I will be outside, so we can take all the questions outside. Thank you, Laura, for hosting this room.